Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday night book club. I am Natalie Borges. I am so excited. We're talking about chapter 7 and 8 tonight from the 21 Laws of Leadership. And I'm so happy that I'm going to be going over these chapters because I loved reading all about this. So let's get started. So chapter 7, as you all know, the law of respect, which it was good. It was good because, to want respect from others, you have to give respect, right? And I think especially in this business, it's so important to have mutual respect with your customers, your sidelines, your uplines, your downlines. I mean, it's like we need it every single way, right? Because we're all working together. We're working as a team. I love that it opens up the chapter with Harriet Tubman because she was fearless leader. I mean, incredible. And I love how he says basically, I mean, people just really respected her because she said whatever she said she was going to do, she did, and people trusted her. I love that John Brown, he said that they would call her General Tubman. I mean, it was like, and she said she was going to do something. She freed over 300 slaves, and probably even more. They say might have been even the most someone has ever, the most, what was it? They said that she could literally lead an army. And she led more people to freedom than any other American in history from slavery. So that's a pretty big deal. And I think, everything it said about attracting strong leaders, it's like, if you want to attract strong leaders, you need to be a strong leader, right? And it talks about 7 ways leaders can gain respect, which, I love Maxwell because he just always breaks it down like this and it's easy to understand. So 7 ways gain respect. 1, natural leadership ability, right? Like some of us can be natural leaders and that's great. But he does say it's not on charisma alone. It's not on talent alone, but some people do have a natural ability, natural charisma to lead, and that's how they gain respect. Number 2, respect for others, right? Like I said, I mean, if we want people to respect us, then we need to be people that also respect others. So we gain respect by gaining respect, especially to people who have less power than us. Like if you feel like, you're talking to someone, I know so many, leaders, even in Plexus, who have sat down and talked to me and have shown me so much respect and have just been so incredible. And I'm like, we're not even on the same team. Like this doesn't benefit you in any way to be sitting down with me and chatting with me. But instantly, what does that do? It increases my respect for this person. Like, wow, this is no benefit to you, but you are investing in me. Wow. Incredible. Easiest way to gain respect, right? So 3, difficulties overcome, right? That's how we can gain respect. Difficult situations make us better leaders. That's just the way it is. Respect is gained on difficult ground. Hard conversations that you might not want to have, positive confrontation, right? Like just helping people solve difficult problems. It's what we do, especially working in a team. You're going to have situations that they're not ideal, but like I said, I mean, you will have to confront these things and you can confront them positively, but that's how you gain respect. Courage, good leaders obviously do what's right, even like he says, even when it's even at the risk of failure, right? You're still going to do what's right. I just want to quickly go through them because time is running. Success, obviously success is attractive. Okay, if you're successful, people are generally going to respect your accomplishments. I think that's pretty common sense. Loyalty, I love that because I think for us in our industry, a lot of people do go and they jump from one thing to the other, and they, I didn't work out here, so I'm just going to go off and jump into another health and wellness company. I'm going to go ahead and sell, candles now. And you're jumping from one thing to the next. You're not going to have credibility with people. People will not respect you if you're jumping from one thing to the next. Be consistent. Stick with what you have. We have a good thing, stick with it. It said in the book, it said an average worker will change occupation 10 times by the time he reaches 36. I mean, that's a lot. But loyalty is an asset. And so when you remain loyal to your organization, to your team, to your company, people will automatically respect that. Okay. And I thought about my mother personally, who my mother has she's worked at this radio station. She was like one of the founding people at this Christian radio station in Paterson, New Jersey. And she has been there for like 35 years. And people really respect her there. Like, she is an OG, like, people respect her because she's been there for so long. So I really thought about that. Just be loyal to what you've been called to do and the opportunity that's been given to you. Obviously, 7, value added to others. If you add value to other people, they will respect you. If you help other people, that's gonna, help make them better. They're going to look to you to inspire them, to help them. Recommendations, we talk about it all the time. You make a recommendation, how good that, makes you feel, because someone thought you were able to help them. Someone saw you and thought, wow, I know Natalie's going to have a good book recommendation. I know Natalie's going to whatever. And that's going to make you feel good. And it's going to make them respect you. So we'll go right into chapter 8, the law of intuition. Another amazing chapter. I think intuition is something that you have to really trust your gut, right? And I think for us believers, I always say I trust the Holy Spirit inside of me. And sometimes the Holy Spirit inside of me says, this is not good. And I believe that. And also the Lord has given us the gift of discernment. I mean, you can pray for these things, y'all. You can actually pray for this and you can practice this. And at the end of the book, at the end of that chapter, he talks about questions you can ask yourself. But I loved it because it talked about the IT Cosmetics, Jamie, right? Her name is Jamie. She had IT Cosmetics, and she had to like basically risk it all to get on QVC. And they told her, she should get models and that already had this flawless skin and, whatever, do their makeup on there. And she was like, doesn't feel right to me. Even though the experts are telling me to do this, that doesn't feel right to me. And so she basically says no. And she, who suffered from rosacea, basically put her bare skin on the TV and did her own makeup, and they sold every single unit. It was a big risk that she was taking, but her gut told her that that's what she needed to do, and she did it. And obviously she sold IT Cosmetics for, I think, like 1.5 billion to L'Oreal or something like that. So I love how it talked about that, because that's just a very simple example of, you got to go sometimes with what you feel. And it's hard because, and John Maxwell talks about that. It's hard to explain that, right? It's hard to someone who maybe is not intuitive. It's hard to explain it because it's not concrete, right? It's not like a 1 + 1 = 2. It's something that you really have to read people and read the room and read yourself. And so he talks about, a leader can read what's going on. So he goes on to, leaders are readers of the situation, right? Like, they have a sense to understand people's attitudes. They see the bigger picture. They're readers of trends, right? We're going to pay attention to trends. Leaders can step back, see where the organization has been and where it's headed. Readers of their resources. I think Tova is amazing at this, leveraging resources instead of this whole like reinventing the wheel thing, but really using the resources. If following your gut means, well, it doesn't feel right to do this whole thing when we already have this amazing resource that we can, sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you can't, it's hard to read the room, right? But we have to be readers of our resources as well, readers of people. Leaders have to be able to read people. We are in the people business. Okay. If someone feels uncomfortable, you should be able to feel that tension. If someone's not okay, you should be able to feel that in some way. I think it's easier for some of us, but like he says, you can definitely learn this. But also readers of themselves, which I really, really love that too. Leaders are readers of themselves. I think sometimes it's easy to kind of point the finger and say like, this girl's upset or she's having an issue here. It's like, well, are you identifying that with yourself too? Like, are you reading yourself and your own emotions and, why you actually did that too? Because that's really important. You can't produce great things if you're not sincere in dealing with yourself. So that is super, man, that if that doesn't speak to you, that is definitely speaks to me. In page 101, he says leaders must know not only their own strengths and blind spots, skills, and weaknesses, but also their current state of mind. So it's really checking in with yourself. What am I feeling? What am I doing? And you don't want to get obsessive about it, but you definitely want to check in with yourself. See the time. Okay, we'll open it up now. I mean, there's so much more to say here. Let me get my questions. And we can start there. Okay. So what activities may cause leaders to lose the respect of others? What activities may cause leaders to lose the respect of others?
I think you kind of mentioned it when you're talking. The first thing I thought of really was jumping from company to company or job to job when something isn't going right, instead of fixing the problem that's going to follow them everywhere they go. So I really love that. Like that one really just stood out to me the most. Really just like not being credible, and just jumping all over the place.
For sure.
I think showing a lack of focus. I see people show up sometimes, but they're not focused. They're not demonstrating what they're focused on. They're kind of doing a little bit of everything. They're over here, working a little bit on this, working a little bit on that. It doesn't create like a sense of stability to see someone that's has their hand in a million different pots, because you can't be successful when your hand is in a million different pots. But the person who's laser focused, I trust that person, and I respect that.
Love that.
I thought back to like, what are other companies? I've worked for a lot of companies. What leaders did I respect and didn't? And I feel like the ones who I have a really bad taste in my mouth from were terrible listeners. Not only didn't receive feedback, most often didn't even ask for it. And that kind of led to a feeling of being out of touch. I think leaders need to be connected to their people and just have like an avenue for them to feel connected. I don't think you necessarily have to know exactly what they're going through, but having that connection. And of course, I think setting the standard, like I have a lot of respect for, in essence, leaders who set the standard and show like by example what's expected kind of thing, and work side by side with you.
Mm-hmm.
So for this one, I really thought about like character, because I feel like, not that I can think of like one example, but you know how somebody may be super successful and it could have been, you know, when you were young or whatever, you like look up to somebody, and it's like the closer you get to them, if you learn that their character is just not good, like, wow, they're so successful, they're such a great person, then it's like you got to get closer, like, wow, they're a terrible person. And I feel like it's like, oh my gosh, I'd rather not have their success because that's miserable or something, you know, like I was thinking about that character, because I feel like I've had that before, like with a teacher and something. So I really thought about that. And then even for me, like a leader that like they follow what they're preaching. You know, it's like, if I am going to follow somebody, whatever they say, that's what I want. Like I want them to practice that. And so, and it's like people go through seasons. Even if you look at our business in particular, it's like sometimes things happen and you can't always show up the way you want. But I always am like, man, I really want to, whatever I'm like putting out or like saying to my people, I really want to be hands-on, like doing that myself. And so I think for me, that's like big.
Absolutely.
Kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, I would say being a little more specific at like self-serving or selfish, because then I don't trust you, because I think you're out for your own interests and own, you know, self-seeking, whatever. I don't know. It's never a good look, in my opinion. But you lose loyalty, I think, too, that way.
It's true. Yeah. Especially when you get to know someone and it's not what they're not what you thought they would be, you know? I know Sabrina doesn't have a voice, but she said a leader who loves you well, but is willing to have a hard conversation. Yes. Those hard conversations. I think hard conversations just increase the trust. Like if you're willing to get into like this, you know, not fancy place, not sexy place. Like this is a hard conversation where we might be upset, we might be whatever, but you're going to sit down and deal with this. Like that does definitely increase my respect for someone as a leader. Like, okay, we're going to do this, you know, it's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to do this. Okay. Let's go to the next question if no one else wanted to answer that one. How would you rate yourself in the area of your intuition? Can you actually sense what people feel? Are you a feeler? My feeler's at.
I'm a feeler. I actually think it had a lot to do with where I grew up. Like growing up in the city in Brooklyn, I think you were just trained to be very aware of your surroundings and to even read body language, especially when traveling. Like my dad was very vigilant about teaching us about like being aware of your surroundings. Don't walk with your headphones in, like, you know, being vigilant. So in a positive way, it could work for, you know, protection or even getting to know somebody deeper or sensing their, you know, if they are uncomfortable or if they're not feeling a certain way. But even to just like read body language, you know, like you're riding on the subway, like I could sense like if, oh, something's off with this person, like I should probably move, like, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
and then even no, it's true.
True.
I mean,
Um,
as a young girl riding to Manhattan all the time, it's true. You have to like have that. But as you know, leading a team, it's the same thing on the phone. Even like you could sense inflection in somebody's voice. Like if you're speaking to them often enough, you could just hear it. Like, are you okay? Is everything all right? You know what I mean? And I think that is so it's I loved this chapter, and I think that, like I said, just growing up in that atmosphere, like I developed it. And I think that with the girls, like I have a pretty good sense, like when I, you know, to see when something's off. So I think it's super important.
I in the same way. My family comments about it all the time. Like, even when I was little, I just feel like I can read people and kind of just like sense their energy a little bit. And especially like when it comes to working this business. And there's sometimes like I'll still reach out to Kylie and, ask her, is this a good way to approach this or whatever? But for the most part, I really just go with my gut. Like, I feel like I can sense when I'm talking to someone if I can like push a little harder, or if maybe I need to come at it like more softly, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing example. Like, there are people that you are ready, you can close them, right? And you just feel it. Like, I'm gonna talk to this person, they're ready, we can get them going today, and then there's other people that you're like, no, they need more. Maybe they need a testimony, or maybe they still need more exposures. They're not fully there yet. So I think that's a really good example, Megan.
So personally, this is kind of like I don't know, intuition for me is hard when it comes to like business executive decisions. And until I took the Strengths Finder, I think it made it make sense, because self-assurance is so low for me that I'm always like, it just made sense. I was like, oh my gosh, because I've always second guessed, like, wait, is this right? I don't know. Whereas we could be on a leaders meeting and somebody else is like, no, that's not a good idea. And I'm like, man, how did they know that? I don't know. But so that part has been so hard for me to try to like learn. And I guess I always have like a gut feeling, but sometimes I'm like all over the place. I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. No, maybe it's not a good idea. And then I'm like, I don't know. But when it comes to like people, and maybe because empathy is such a strength of mine, I feel like I'm really good with my intuition of how somebody's feeling, kind of like what Megan was saying. But even deeper than that, like my husband, he's made jokes before because he's like, how did you know? Because I'm like, oh my gosh, that person, that was totally off. We could be somewhere out, and I'm like, something's happening between those two or something, like. But I think it's very interesting to me, because in one part, like business wise, it's been such a struggle for me with the intuition part. But with people and connecting and like communicating with people, it does seem to come a little easier. So it's very interesting. I've been really thinking about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love, like, at the end of page, I think it's at the very last page, 108, where you can ask yourself, what do I feel? What do I actually feel? What do I know? What do I think? What should I do? Like, that's such a good guide to kind of give you some clarity on that intuition, or what your gut feeling is, but you are great at that, Kylie. Like, you be knowing stuff. Anybody else?
I'm going to piggyback off of Kylie, because I feel like that was exactly what I was thinking. It's so crazy to think, like, when it comes to people, I feel like I'm a people person and I can read people, but when I made the transition into diving into the business, I kind of overthought things and just like was second guessing, and more recently being like, wait, no, like, take all of this away, like this pressure or this anxiety that I'm putting on myself, right? Like, am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right things? And going back to like, this is a person. And I have been reading the book that you recommended, Natalie, Dare to Lead. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, by Brene. And she was saying like how if you're in an audience and you're scared and you're going to go talk to someone, like, you don't visualize people as being naked per se, but you strip away who you think they are, their credentials, all the things that you're like so nervous about, like, well, they know this better than I would, and who am I to talk and speak from this place? But you're like, wait, they're just a human, like you would talk to your friends or be able to know in a, public place where you're like, oh, I'm feeling something going on with these people over there, right? Like, you're just feeling those vibes. When you strip all of that away, like these are people, and you're able to like really lean into those intuitions and really being able to apply that to the business aspect now, and like being like, no, 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 no. When I reach out to these people, like they are people and I'm here to listen to them and know that I can do this in the way that I do it, even if they're just telling me about their day or their struggles or anything else in their life.
Yes. That was so good.
So good, Holly. I think that I think that trusting your intuition goes hand in hand with just like self-trust. Like the more you trust yourself, the more you trust your intuition. So you start, if you're having trouble like connecting to intuition, I think it starts with self-trust, like honoring the promises that you make to yourself, or just taking baby steps towards like, I think this is my intuition. I'm going to test it out, and growing that like trust of your intuition over time. I think that this chapter is super validating because I lead with my intuition often. And so it's validating to just see like, this is very important that you do lead with intuition. And it's not like, for me, it's not like a risky or foolish thing to go off of your intuition, but it's actually something that you need to be like tuned into and listening to and trusting that voice and trusting the Holy Spirit and just leaning into that instead of second guessing yourself and not trusting yourself and questioning yourself and like holding yourself back. It's just learning to trust that voice inside of you. And it's really important to do that. And also I loved the leaders are readers of people. He says that reading people is perhaps the most important intuitive leadership skill that you can possess. And so I'm like, man, that's so good. That's why every single message and every single person that comes on your team and leaves your team, it was not a loss because you learned how to read them better. Like every single person that leads, all of it is learning. You are building the skill of reading people. And so it's all like an apprenticeship of learning how to read people and know people and get people and serve people and love people, So I really like that part. That's my rant.
No, that was good. We want more of it. Yeah, I think like he says, it's not concrete and it's kind of hard to explain it to someone who doesn't really get that. Yeah, it can be a little it's like a gray area, it's not black and white.
For people who aren't so good at it, I do want to say I firmly believe it can be learned and sharpened in essence. And I think back to my medical career and my intuition with patients when I was brand new versus 18 years in was totally different. And in the ER, we could tell young docs, like, this patient's going down, and like, there's no evidence for that. They're just fine. And like, sure enough, it would happen. And I think it's similar with your business. The longer you do it, don't get discouraged if you think you're bad at it. That's not one of your weaknesses. Talk to the people who are good at it. I've done that and kind of watched people who are good at it and learn to listen to yourself, because I trust myself a lot, but I don't know how intuitive I always have been with other people and what they're feeling and thinking. And yeah, I think the empaths tend to be a lot better at that, at reading emotions in people. So I think I just have to be a little more intentional. That's what I've done. Ask more questions than I normally would and kind of almost assume like there's probably something here I'm not reading. So setting up an environment to kind of be a safety net for that.
That's good. Yeah, I think honestly, if you want to be better at reading people, you got to get around people. You just need to get around people. You need to go, I don't know, be a part of some groups, hang out with some people, like different kind of people, different cultures. I mean, it's so incredible, you know, what you can just learn from people when you sit down and talk with people that have a different perspective than you. You grow so much just from being with people, different kinds of people. You know, we're all so different. Yes, new people will teach you so much. So true. Yes, reading between the lines. I think that's one that I think is, like I said, it's like, you know, you want to go with your gut, but sometimes there's this like, am I reading to, I think as women, sometimes we think we're overthinking things, right? But it's like, if you're overthinking this and you keep getting the same thoughts over and over, probably something there, you know. It's probably something there. So the last question, I guess we kind of already answered it, but if anybody has another example of this, I would appreciate you share that. How has the law of intuition helped you in your business? An example of that has helped you in your business. Anybody want to get vulnerable?
I was just talking to one of my girls the other day. She noticed someone on her team was kind of getting a little bit quiet or whatever. And I was impressed with her just having the intuition to notice that and reach out to her and just say, hey, like, just want to check in on you and see how things are going. And then, you know, they talked and things like that. So I feel like having that intuition of when someone is starting to just kind of like maybe they're struggling but don't want to talk about it, just like reaching out to them and being that friend or leader that they need, can really come in handy. And I've seen that happen. I've had it happen and all the things.
Yeah, I think reading the trends of people, I think is really important too. You know, if you have someone who's always coming to you and they're always asking you questions, and all of a sudden that stops, you know, it's like, okay, well, there's something there. You know, that's not the trend of this person. That's not how they are, or that's not typical. So just paying attention to that is really important. Anybody else?
I feel like more recently, Natalie was telling me about like kind of playing it soft with people, like when they'd give me objectives and I just like, okay, you're right. We'll see you later and just let it be. But like really being like really leaning into those intentions and being like, okay, is that really their objective? And like Tova was saying, like just asking more questions and like being like, oh, I just had someone who's like, I would love some samples, but she had so many objectives that were like, nope, I just can't even do caffeine. She's like, I don't do even the smallest. I was like, it's not a whole lot. It's less than 2%. Like, she's like, nope. And then as I asked and like leaned in more than intuitions, I was like, I don't think it's caffeine that she's worried about. So like applying that towards like these objectives that people are giving us and being like, well, is there really something going on like financially? Yeah. Like those things you can really read and be like, yeah, I'm going to pray for you and really know that we can circle back and there's God's timing in this. Right. But then there's other people you're like, okay, what's holding you back? And let's being able to like figure out those types of things.
Mm-hmm. So good. Anybody else? One more example? Nat?
I think there's just been so many times I'm like, how to even like, there's just been so many times where I've just been like that, you know, I don't think we should do that kind of event or whatever. And I can't tell you why, but I can tell you that I don't think we should do that. Or you trying this new thing, like it seems like it could be a good idea, but I've never seen it go right. And I just don't have a good feeling about it. I don't think we should do it, even though I'm not typically like, I don't put the brakes on a lot of things, but when I do, it's like, I really trust that feeling. And it's never led me astray. I've never made a decision like that where it's been like, dang, you know what? We actually think we should have done that, you know? So I don't know. It's just something that you have to practice leaning into for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
And then you learn to trust that so much more over time. Even with like people working the business, I've had people want to work the business and it looks good on the outside, and I've just been like, I just don't know about this person. I don't know if this person coming into our, you know, team will add value or whatever, or if I really want this, because it looks like easy or on the outside. And I've like not worked with people because of that feeling.
Mm.
And no regrets, you know.
Wow.
And later on, I've seen in their character like that evolve. Like the more I get to know them, the more I see, and I've been like, wow, you know what? Really glad I didn't pursue that or whatever, you know.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Some good examples. All right,
I
y'all.
agree with that,
Oh,
Natalie. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I was
go
just
ahead.
gonna
Yeah.
say, and sometimes like, you know, you think you're a little bit crazy for like thinking these things, but the best way sometimes to learn how to lean into your intuition is by having it proven to you that you weren't crazy, like by things like maybe going wrong. Like, okay, I knew this was a bad idea. Like, and really just the more that happens, I feel like sometimes we start to trust our intuition a little bit more. So that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, that's I was gonna also say, like, sometimes you do have to fail and just be like, you know what, actually that was a bad call, you know, and it's okay to make those bad calls because you learn from that, you know, like, okay, I felt this last time and I made a bad call, and that's okay too. It's okay to do that because, like you said, you know, with time you'll be able to grow in that. The problem is sometimes we don't want to make any calls, you know, we don't want to make a bad call, we don't make any calls, and so then we're not growing in that area. So really, I mean, I think to conclude that whole chapter, it's like get around people. Get around people, be with people, you know, really learn to read a room, go into a restaurant, read the room, you know, like start practicing that. And just go with your gut. And if you mess up and you make a bad call, it's okay. You learn from that. Well, okay, that concludes our call. Thank you all so much for being on tonight. Bye.